Okay, we are being joined by friends all over the United States. Welcome into our little room here in Nashville at the Loveless Cafe. This is the 7th annual fundraiser that Exile International has hosted. I know some of you have been at all 7. Some of you, this is the first time. The thing that I'm most excited about tonight is that you get to learn the heart of Exile International, which started with Bethany and her journey. If you don't know Beth's story, I think I saw copies of The Color of Grace back here. It's a wonderful book. They did an amazing job with that story. But if you're a sucker for good stories like I am, autobiography, Bethany's story is one that will boost your confidence and your belief in how Jesus works in people's lives. So tonight, we are here to do one very practical thing. And you'll hear other people talk about this. But our goal tonight is we want to raise $150,000. Last year, we raised $121,000, which is the largest amount that Exile has ever raised in a single event. And so we're going for more than that this year. And we believe that those who are joining us online and those who are here in the room, that we can make that happen together. I first met Beth maybe a month into becoming the teaching minister for Otter Creek in 2009. Exile had just launched. She was trying to find church partners. Otter Creek was one of the first churches that was willing to help her with her dream. And I have watched since the summer of 2009, I have watched Exile grow and expand in its mission. And some of us are around nonprofits a lot, and we're around a lot of different people who lead a lot of ministries. And you can imagine the personalities that kind of intersect in a city like Nashville. One of the things that I love about Beth is from the very beginning, she's always made this about how do we stay true to the life of Jesus in the places that we're being called. It's not about theological debate. It's not about doctrinal nuances. It's not about trying to impose a particular culture on these beautiful kids in this part of the world. This is about watching how Jesus connects us and holds us all together. And so tonight you get to step into that story and you get to be part of that. So before Matthew and Bethany come up, I want to tell you a little bit about my experience with Exile. Several years ago, we did a combination trip. Otter Creek Church also works with a similar ministry. It's different, but a similar ministry in Kenya called Made in the Streets. And Bethany and Matthew gave up 2 weeks of their time to spend time with the teachers at Made in the Streets. So this program in Nairobi, Kenya, Nairobi is one of the largest cities on the continent of Africa. They have this massive child homelessness problem. There's a lot of really effective ministry who take kids from the city of Nairobi and they take them out to a farm. It's in a place called Kamulu. So when they come out to the farm in Kamulu, we usually have between 90 and 130 students living on this farm. It's the most amazing holistic farm. Matthew and Bethany gave up 2 weeks of their time to equip the teachers and the staff there with how to do this kind of therapy, this kind of narrative understanding of how God works in our lives and heals people. And the thing that I always use to describe Bethany and Matt is that they live their life out of an orientation to joy. And when you're around people who live out of a sense of joy, it's contagious. Like, you want to be part of it because we live in such a cynical time right now. There's so much cynicism. Everybody's so right about their thing and so certain in the thing that they're trying to do. And if everybody else was just as smart as they were. And with Bethany and Matthew, it's like we have the joy of God in our lives. And we take great joy in this thing that we have called you to. And I watched them up close for 2 weeks pour into these students and staff. And I know there's a lasting difference in that part of Kenya. And there was no real incentive to Exile for them to do that. They just wanted to do that and to pour that love into those teachers. So as we said earlier, we have matching donors. So your gifts are getting doubled and tripled tonight. So whether you're going to give $50 or $500, we have gracious people who have already stepped up and want to be part of that. Before I bring Matthew and Bethany up to take us into the story, I want to mention of our sponsors who made this happen. So tonight, a big part of what we're experiencing was created by Bella Bridesmaids, Milk Barn Kids, and John the Printer. 3 very eclectic groups coming together. So let's say thank you. Thank you to those 3 sponsors. Tonight, our musicians are going to be Ruby Amanfu and Sam Ashworth. They're going to be sharing their music. I have not heard them yet, but I'm told that they are, this is a direct quote, stunning and beautiful in their artistry. And it's a gift that we get to be here tonight and experiencing. We were supposed to hear from Britt Nicole, and we're planning on hearing her at another event, but her schedule changed and she could not come. So we are looking forward to having that experience at another time. This is the last thing I'll say before I bring up Matthew and Bethany.
It's about the children that we serve and the African leaders on the ground that really we follow, that risk their lives every day to do this work. But I will start and tell you a little bit about how I stepped into this story. It started on a short-term mission trip to Congo in 2008. And as Josh mentioned, I was coming out of some really deep trauma wounds of my own, deep depression, shame, darkness. And my plan was really just to give up on myself. But God's plan was to turn my pain into purpose. And being honest about how bad things were led me into treatment. And a lot of twists and a lot of turns later, that actually led me into a war zone. I had just gotten my head above water emotionally. I was in full-time private practice counseling at the time, deeply in debt, emphasis on deeply there. And honestly, my nightmares had really just stopped from the PTSD. And so a lot of people kind of thought I had lost my mind because there was this fire in my belly, and I knew that I just had to do something. So I decided to dive headfirst into starting a nonprofit in Africa. So starting to do research and research back and forth about child soldiers. And I remembered every time I felt like I wanted to give up, I would remember my time in Africa where I was face to face with rescued child soldiers. And I remember being in a displacement camp. There were 10,000 people there. And I felt like I was surrounded by a sea of orphaned children and these families who had run and run away from rebels. And really, they just wanted to go home. But their homes had been burned. And so there was no home to go back to. And I remember thinking, they're just living in exile. And emotionally, they were living in exile. And physically, they were living in exile. And for me, I knew I didn't have the answer, and I knew I wasn't the answer, but I knew I just had to do something. And so I took one step in front of the other step and started a foundation, started a nonprofit. We started working with 25 children, 2 counselors on the ground in a small community 13 years ago. And now we're working with over 2,500 children, with over 250,000 leaders on the ground who are both volunteers and staff, who again risk their lives every day for these children. It's humbling. It's humbling to think about that. I do want to tell you this one short story that came to mind last week. I'd actually forgotten about it. It speaks to our humble beginnings. Let me just say those 2 words, humble beginnings. I remember I wanted all of our kids to have a Bible because they never had a Bible before. And so didn't have a lot of money. I certainly didn't have a lot of money. And so we were getting ready to go on a trip, and I thought, I'm going to go by Dollar General, and I'm going to buy them a Bible. Well, the only Bible that I could afford was this tiny New Testament Bible. I was proud. We've got Bibles. We're going over. So I go over, and I give our counselor, this is the Bibles. She looked at it. She said, where's the other half of the Bible? And I said, this is all I have. She said, we need the Holy Bible, like both halves of the Bible. And I said, well, this is all we could afford. And so I was determined at that point that we had to get these kids the whole Bible, right? So now we're dedicated that every child we have is able to have a Bible in their own native tongue. So, this is really what happens with a lot of different people step into their yes. And in reality, we stepped into God's story. It wasn't our story, it was God's vision from the beginning that He asked us to come along and join Him in. We're excited to be here.
Well, I don't know if my stepping into the story was quite as dramatic in the very beginning, but mine began at the ripe old age of 22, seeing a documentary about child soldiers, which were two words I never thought went together. Children and war, children fleeing from their homes that were being burned, children living in displacement camps, which are refugee camps within your own country, and children being forced to kill their own family members. And my heart was wrecked, and I didn't know it at the time, but my life was changed. The following summer, I found myself in I didn't really find myself, I figured out a way to get there, but I ended up in northern Uganda that next summer, and it was there, meeting these children for the first time, that this went from being something I had seen on a screen to something that it was tangible. You could see trauma on people's faces. I didn't have to ask, okay, which one is traumatized? Which one, who's working here versus who is living here because they fled their home? You could see it. When I met children who had been forced to kill their own family, I had the same kind of God light bulb that I'm sure you would have had there too. This is what God made me to do. I'm going to do something. Well, I did what I think some of you in the room would have done if you had a degree in psychology. I said, great, I'll go start a master's in counseling. I'll focus on trauma so that I can work with child survivors of trauma. So I did that. Found every opportunity I could to volunteer. Over the next several years, the next thing I know, someone's connecting me with someone, this gal. And I'm in Congo, and I'm actually getting to work with this organization as a volunteer that's doing this thing that God had put on my heart 4 years before. Like when I read the mission statement on the website, that was like the mission statement for my life. I was like, I've got to do this. So really soon thereafter, I said, hey, founder, you got to give me a job. I want to work for you.
And I said, we can't pay you.
It's exactly what you said, and I didn't blink. And I said, God will work out that detail. I'm in. I'll take it. And He did. He worked out that detail. And fast forward, as Beth said, we get the privilege of serving almost 2,600 children today whose lives are being transformed. But the point of us sharing this story is not so that you know our story, but because we're all a part of a bigger story. And it's just figuring out where we're stepping in to that story. And so we're going to play a little video now, and we're going to see several other people who have stepped into the story. It's going to be some of our Congolese and Ugandan staff. You'll hear from them. It's the children themselves and how they're now writing stories of redemption. And some of our partners, even ones that are in the room right now, are going to share why and how they have stepped into the story. So let's go ahead and start that video.
Collègues qui étaient en âge ont subi. C'était les heures de la nuit où les soldats étaient venus. Par la force, ils ont parvenu à entrer dans des grandes torches puisqu'ils faisaient tellement la nuit.
Je suis parmi ceux qui sont partis comme ça, étant donné que j'ai beaucoup de temps. Quand j'ai quitté l'école, je vivais avec les militaires et j'avais déjà cet goût de réintégrer les forces.
There are more than 250,000 child soldiers in the world. In the countries of Congo and Uganda, there are 6 million children who've been orphaned because of the wars.
Boys and girls who are enslaved and trafficked, forced to fight and forced to kill, often used as sex slaves. Children as young as 7 that are forced to kill their own parents. These children are living in hell, and that's why we exist.
It is so difficult for a child who was abducted, forced violence, to kill, to shed innocent blood. They experience first-hand murders. It is so terrible to them when they come in.
He doesn't have hope. He doesn't trust anybody. He is aggressive. He needs to live alone. He is traumatized.
And that's where our team of counselors come in. They reassure them that they are home.
Partnering with the Exile team has made us as a family better. It clarifies for us on a daily basis what's really important in life.
Exile has given me a reminder that there is a lot more to the world than just what is around me. I think it's taught me a lot about how to be selfless, how to care about other people, and how to have empathy.
And we know that God has placed Exile exactly there to reach these individuals. Otherwise, we might not ever even know their stories.
Together, we help transform child survivors of war to leaders of peace through our art-focused trauma healing, therapy, and holistic rehabilitative care.
With trauma, it shuts down the area of the brain of language. But when you're able to use the right side of your brain, the creative part of your brain, to process and to get out that pain, then it's a safer way to process your wounds.
Cela ne nous a pas un peu angoissés. Nous nous sommes dirigés dans les camps de déplacés. La chance nous a souri et nous a rencontrés pour nous retrouver dans le programme d'Exile international.
Dans un premier temps, Exile m'a fait des séances de détraumatisation. J'ai essayé de changer le comportement, la vie d'Imaki. Elle a essayé de disparaître à l'esprit. J'ai pris un élan, j'ai commencé à m'arranger un ordre utile pour une autre vie différente de celle d'Imaki.
We invest in them so that they can be the future leaders who have experienced the worst, but it can work. Change can happen.
Every year, more graduates are ready to replicate the care that changed their life, yet we're still having to say no. There's more children that need this care that we can't yet reach. By the year 2040, we aim to reach 100,000 child survivors of war, rescued child soldiers, and children orphaned by war.
I think that those leaders of peace are going to make a difference in this world, and I can't wait to see the value that they bring to different people's lives.
It has been our privilege to partner with Exile International for over 5 years. We believe in their important work and the kingdom impact they're having.
We will continue to just support their work and support what God's doing in these communities.
They have found healing and hope and redemption because He does not see what they have been through, but who they can become.
They're ready to launch into their communities and change their nations for Christ.
Ils voient que l'exil peut être le début de leur espoir.
I believe that's the message that Christ would give them, to see these child soldiers become leaders for peace.
That just got bright. So these stories of redemption are possible because people like you have said yes. Because our Congolese counselors and Ugandan leaders, they've said yes. Because graduates, former child soldiers and children orphaned by war, whose lives have been transformed, they have said yes. Christ changed my life. Others have to experience this too. And they're now replicating the care that transformed their lives. Redemption, healing, and hope, they're not just words. They're real. And they're what makes us get up in the morning. Oftentimes people ask because if you know us well, many of you in the room have known us for a while, sometimes life feels like a roller coaster ride when you serve in Congo because things are going great. You're seeing all this growth and children healing, and then a volcano erupts. Y'all know what I'm talking about. That happened this year. Or the provincial capital where our headquarters is overthrown by rebels. And we're not talking about a village, y'all. It's a city bigger than Nashville, 2 million people, overrun and taken over, and you're praying as bombs are literally mortars flying over these care programs, and staff are laying beds over the children and praying. It feels like a roller coaster sometimes, but that redemption and healing and hope, it is so real. And I hope that you get a little taste of that here tonight. I hope that if you already have stepped into the story, that you continue to. Let's keep writing or being a part of the big guy upstairs who's writing redemption stories. So since 2008, over 6,700 children have received this care. They're not child survivors of war, they're leaders for peace. We don't call children in the programs anymore rescue child soldier. When you come and you join the program, you get a new name. It is Young Peacemaker. There are 6,700 young peacemakers that are transforming their communities and their country, and I truly believe that someday we're going to look at this region that's been known for decades of war and violence and poverty. We're going to look at it and we're going to go like, wow, that is a place of peace and hope and joy. And like Josh mentioned earlier, the number of believers in Christ on that continent now outnumber North America. Not really that surprised, to be honest with you. But we're going to see them spreading that joy and that hope in so many other ways. Like good news is going to go just from, words on a page. It's going to be lived out as, as communities are transformed by Christ and by these young men and young women. And we really hope that you're going to step in and be a part of something that we are excited about. It's plastered on our walls, and it's the thing that's been getting me most jazzed the last couple of years. And it's our 20-year vision to bring 100,000 child survivors the care that they need. Tonight, we can make a really big dent in that and continuing to add more momentum to this. 100,000 children that receive the care they need to overcome and thrive. And it's not just that 100,000 children. That's going to be 100,000 families that are touched, 100,000 communities that are touched. And think about as they rise above poverty and help their communities rise above. I really need a glass of water or something. Excuse me. As they help their communities rise above poverty and help end cycles of violence, this is exciting and it's possible, and you better get on this ride.
When I hear Matthew talk about the vision, even me, I say, wow. And I remember when we started talking about the 2040 vision and working with 100,000 children, and it freaked me out a little bit. I will be honest with you.
Still does.
It kind of does still freak me out a little bit. But we also know that God is leading us, and so we're just following him. We know that, as you can imagine, the amount of trauma these kids have gone through is severe, and we do not take that lightly. We also don't take our vision lightly, and we know it is no small feat to even imagine a child that survived war to become a leader for peace in their community, especially this level of trauma that they've gone through. We also know from the beginning, we've realized that this can't be a Band-Aid, right? Because of the deep wounds of war that these kids have gone through. We knew that the model from the beginning, it needed to be clinical, it needed to be strategically focused, and it's hard. And our U.S. team is here. Guys, raise your hands. I want you guys to, let's go ahead and give them a round of applause because they're absolutely amazing. And if you talk to our U.S. team, if you talk to our Africa team, they're going to tell you this is hard work. But the fun thing is that the dream that we started to have is actually becoming a reality. And we have high standards. We know that these kids are precious and they deserve excellence. And with Matthew and I being counselors, we aren't satisfied with anything, and I'm going to have to read this because it's so much. We aren't satisfied with anything that is less than statistically proven, data-driven, curriculum-based, strategically led programs that is holistic, Christ-centered, and expressive therapy focused, included an educational aspect to lift the kids out of poverty. Right? No big deal. I literally had to read that and take a deep breath. It's a big deal. And I want to show you some stats to kind of show you what God is doing. Everybody loves some stats. I'm sure the mathematicians in the room are loving this. And I don't really love statistics, and so it's funny that I'm actually leaving this part, but that's fine. So since 2008, 6,700 children have been served. We are seeing a 78% decrease in trauma symptoms for those who've been in our program for 2 years. Incredible. This is something that I love this statistic. I do actually love this statistic. 35 of our 44 care programs are led by EI graduates. And so guys, that is rescued child soldiers and children orphaned by war who are taking the model that gave them heart healing, and they're working with rescued child soldiers and children orphaned by war. And so that's the beauty of the full circle model. 90% have completed their education. That's 4 times the national average. And many people ask us about, okay, how are you guys doing this? How does this work? And they ask us about our treatment model. And I love to talk about this because this is something that we have been doing from the very beginning. It's called the HOPE Initiative. And it stands for Healing and Ongoing Peace Through Expression. So we walk the kids through a 3-tier curriculum-based model. And the first part is art-focused trauma care. We've talked about that a lot tonight, using dance and drama and music and drawing to bring the kids back to life again. You can see the joy on their face. You can see when they're doing dramas. You saw some of that in the video. They're able to get out the pain that they have inside. So the second part is peace building and conflict resolution skills training. It's a curricula that we have most recently translated into French for our kids on the ground. And it's Christ-centered, biblically based. It walks the kids through conflict resolution skills, forgiveness, and compassion, which I think that's something that we really all need, even in America right now, right? The last is Christian leadership. And this part, it's the essence of how to become a Christ-centered leader so that they can change their communities and lead them toward peace and reconciliation. Woven through all of this is discipleship. So get this, in the past 3 years, 140 of our older youth have made the choice to be baptized. So, thank you! Thank you! I think that's incredible. New life takes on a different meaning when you know the Lord not only saved you spiritually, but literally saved you physically. And you can see that in the songs that they write. You can see that as they dance and as they worship. So the fun fact, I guess this is the announcement of this. I don't think we've kind of announced this from this stage yet, but we have a program called the Extend program. So we're actually piloting the HOPE Initiative since we've seen such success in it. And the goal is to start working with other organizations, working with other war-affected children around the world so that we can take this beyond Congo and Uganda. You can clap for that too, that's fine. So the last thing that really helps the program just kind of launch is that it's all led by local leaders. And again, these are our complete heroes, the people that risk their lives really every day on the ground, those who've been kidnapped themselves, those who have had children kidnapped of theirs, those who have been through rebel ambushes. So when we say that they risk their lives, we don't just say that flippantly. They've actually gone through some of the things that I just mentioned. So this is all great and it's numbers, but we want to tell you some stories of the kids because that's really what this is all about.
Oh, gosh. So this is Alice. Apologies if you read her name outside. We use pseudonyms often on print materials. I don't know what her fake name is. It's actually Alice. Don't go telling anyone. Alice was a child soldier herself. Oftentimes people think it's just boys, but girls are used as child soldiers as well. They're also the boys too, but girls very often are sexually abused, sexually violated, forced to be forced wives to rebel leaders. Thankfully that did not happen to Alice. After she after she escaped, she's been through that healing that we've all talked about now, but what is she doing now? So she's recently finished her master's in counseling, and she now works for Exile International and is helping children who are just like herself when she was younger, helping them to heal. This is a part of the beauty of these programs, that we're actually seeing children coming to the programs because they've been told by those who've abused them and taken them, you'll never have hope, no one will ever take you. Yet they see young men and women like Alice, they're like, wait, she has discovered hope. Maybe I can learn about it from her.
Yeah. So next I want to introduce you to Innocent. Innocent was one of the first kids that we started working with.
There's that first group of 25 kids are really, really
Innocent was a
special
part
to
of,
us.
yeah.
They're kind of like our kids in a lot of ways.
So he always referred to himself as Mr. Innocent, and he wanted you to call him Mr. Innocent. This smile that you see was there from the very beginning. His smile has always been radiant. But behind the smile is the reality of what he went through. He was abducted at 14. He was in the rebel militia in captivity for 2 years. And when he came into the program, I remember him telling me a story of him being in captivity, and there was a kind of a river that they came to. And he said some of the rebel leaders, it was just too deep to cross on their own. And so he said the rebel leaders would get some of the child soldiers, and they would tell them that they had to kneel down in the water for them to step on them to cross the river. And he told me so many of the kids drowned that day. But I remember his smile was just like, but I praise God that that wasn't me, that wasn't me, that I was able to live. And so we had the incredible privilege of going back home with him when he was reunified. And it was a long journey. We were with our team. I remember him getting car sick in the back of the car because he had never ridden in a car before. And I had my antibacterial gel, and he was smelling it because somehow it kind of helped him with his car sickness. And we got to the village, and he was so happy to be home. And when we got ready to get back into the car, he said, Mom, he said, greet the people at your village and tell them thank you for what they've done. So the great thing is that his story actually doesn't stop there. He is leading now. He has started a Peace and Healing Club, one of the first graduates that we had that started a Peace and Healing Club in his village, working with other rescued child soldiers and children who've been orphaned by war and mentoring other leaders of these programs. So this is Innocent.
And this is Destin. This is actually Innocent's older brother. So they were both abducted at young ages, I believe at age 14 and age 15. Well, Destin, after he came to Exile's care programs, and he might have been the actual first graduate. I think he was. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he kind of also set the standard in a lot of ways. After he moved back to his village, was reunified there, they had family members that were still alive, a mother and they now had younger siblings. I believe they had never met before. So Destin started working, having finished his secondary education, which there is like high school, right? So he had finished that, so there you can teach primary school, elementary school. So he's teaching elementary school, saving money, built a home for his mom and his family. He also put himself through university. And then after he finished university, he was able to start then teaching at secondary school, making even more money, all while also helping his younger brother start this care program that Innocent still leads today. Well, now fast forward beyond that, Destin's actually working as a regional aid coordinator throughout their region, coordinating the efforts of multiple nonprofits and aid organizations that are serving, I have no idea how many people, but that's what's possible when we invest in young men and women like this. It's pretty beautiful. I get a little excited.
So sadly, these stories are very inspiring, but the reality is that this is not the story for most children. Most kids who've been kidnapped and abducted aren't rescued, especially the girls. Very few of the girls are rescued. And I want to introduce you to Dominique. It's strange to actually introduce you to him. A part of his story is that he was abducted at 10 years old, I believe maybe coming home from school. As militia, he was brainwashed, tortured, um, as you can imagine, the stories that you've heard about child soldiers, the worst of the worst happened to him. He kept moving his way up in ranks of the Lord's Resistance Army. And 30 years he was in captivity, eventually becoming an adult and known for one of the most brutal leaders of the Lord's Resistance Army. Captured and kidnapped countless children. In 2014, he was detained. Recently, at The Hague, he was tried for crimes against humanity. His story really wrecks me because I see the face of Destin and I see the face of Innocent and I see the faces of so many of our boys and our girls, and I realize that this could be them. If they had not been rescued, if they had not escaped, if they had not gone through the program, they could have been the next Dominique O'Gwen. And it really, I feel like the Lord whispers in my ear sometimes, we can't lose one of them. We can't lose one of them. And so this is the reason why we do what we do. So we have less and less Dominiques and more Innocents and more Destins.
Thanks. This is another one of those stories. Young lady named Laura. She was orphaned by the war when both of her parents were killed by rebels. She tried surviving for a time on her own before turning to the streets, looking to scavenge for food, find a place to rest her head at night while trying to hide from the predators on the streets. After a while, she learned that there were care programs for young boys and young girls like herself, so she went to go knock at the door, but they didn't have room for her. And this has been a story that we have had for years. We always have a waiting list. There's always more children that we could serve if we had room, if we had the resources to do it. We frequently have to turn people away. Now, Laura didn't actually knock at the door of an Exile care center, but each week she would go and knock at the door of this other care center. But each week they had to say no. Well, after several months, they noticed that Laura never came back. Laura didn't come knock. We don't know what happened to Laura. And that is the reality. Without someone stepping in to provide the care that they need, that's going to be the end of many stories.
But we also know that this doesn't have to be the end of these kids' stories, and that's why we exist. We truly believe when your greatest heartache becomes your greatest ministry, then grace comes full circle. And when kids go through healing, then they change the lives of other kids, and their story starts to write more chapters, and it creates new narratives. It becomes a story that cannot be tamed. It's a ripple effect. And so that's what we're seeing in our programs. It changes generations, it changes communities, and it changes countries. We're getting ready to hear from two of our heroes. We call all of our team on the ground our heroes because that's what they are. We wanted you, John actually was supposed to come over and be here, but COVID, and so he didn't, and we thought, well, we're gonna get them here somehow. So this is a video of Matthew and I sitting with John and Zawadi, some of our lead team on the ground. We wanted you to hear from them.
Everyone, I'm excited to introduce you to John and Zawadi Samvura. They're two of our leaders in Congo. They are two of the most beautiful and most brilliant human beings I've ever met. It's an honor to introduce them to you today. Okay, let's jump right in. John, it can be really hard for us Americans to wrap our minds around what it's like for children in war, what it's like for children to be abducted or enslaved, children that are orphaned by war. Can you help us wrap our minds around that?
When you look at this region where there's so many militia groups, children have been thoroughly used in the wars. They are abducted. There's this thinking that children, once you give them a gun, once you torture them and you tell them what to do, they do it without thinking. And this has really affected so many children that were forced to, to carry a gun, forced to kill at an early age. And by the time they are either rescued or or somehow they escape, then they are traumatized to the level that it's unbelievable. A kid that have been, put into a situation of killing, shedding innocent blood. And this is not just one story. It's a story in many, many, many villages.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so Zawadi's on our counseling team. Can you speak to the emotional impact of this trauma that the kids experience? And then maybe talk about how Exile's program helps bring them back to life again. I know you're on the front lines of all of that, so we'd love to hear from you.
As children, they are really affected emotionally. Kids love to play, and here their childhood is stolen. They are forced to do things which are above their age and unwillingly. A child introduced to killing, shooting, violence, and the level of trauma is so high because they are seeing all these people being killed and they are the ones killing them. Sometimes killing people in their own villages, people they know. So automatically, once they come out of there, they are no longer the same kids who were abducted because they were forced to turn into small beasts. They don't reason for themselves. What they know is only violence. But thank God, with Exile programs, it's like they are being reborn because we bring them the aspect of love, compassion, trust, listening to them especially because they have all these things running within their hearts. They can't share with anybody. No one is there to listen to them. They're only given orders when they're abducted and they have to follow them. They can't express their feelings. But when we receive them, we give them the opportunity to express themselves and helping them to understand that we are not blaming them. We are not judging them. We are accepting them the way they are. We have the trauma healing programs. Of course, we do the listening and the counseling. As I said, when they're still children, at 14, you have to take back the years lost. So we have the music therapy, which helps them to express and relax their bodies so they can re-experience their childhood.
Zawadi, I just want to say that picture you place in my mind of they're forced to be beasts. Mm-hmm. They're experiencing hell on earth, and they're forced to be beasts. Mm-hmm. But yet also you shared the peace that they're experiencing through these programs where they're coming and they're reclaiming their childhood. Mm-hmm. They're healing and they're being redeemed.
Speak to the beauty that you see when the children in our program, both rescued child soldiers and children orphaned by war, when they take the model that they experienced healing from and they start using that to bring healing to other war-affected children, other rescued child soldiers, other children orphaned by war. Can you tell us about the dynamic or the beauty that you see from that?
Oh, yeah. The beauty is the change. When they're in the bush there, they just look like bushmen. And sometimes when they come, you look at them and like, oof, okay, this is a hard piece we are going to deal with. But once they go through the healing, they go through all the programs, you see like it's a new person who has come out. The beauty and the humanity of a person comes out. Someone who can talk with, someone who can express their real emotions, someone who has dreams and is determined to get them. Like you see some kids coming, I don't want to go to school because they know what they did to school kids. Maybe he was abducted on the way from school and he just feel like school is a high risk for him. But with time, when they begin healing, they say, no, I want to go back to school and be a nurse and be a teacher as I've always wanted. And the kids striving day in, day out to what he really dreamed of being. That just gives you back joy. To see someone going to church, playing drums in church, receiving Christ, kids like in our worship services, these kids can take their Bibles, preach the word of God, and be like, wow, this one is going far. You can see like even for the orphans, normally in the African setup, when you become an orphan, it's like your dreams are shattered. You just forget about dreaming. But now these are people they just see, oh, there's a light somewhere. It just gives back joy.
Okay, John, one last question for you. Will you tell us a bit about the graduate-led replication model, the impact that it has on communities today, but also the impact that if God is truly in this, what's possible over the next 10, 20, or even 30 years?
You know, when you look at the graduates, and when both boys and girls, when they they finish our program and they get the healing that they need, and they say we want to go back to the communities. It's a journey of forgiving oneself and reconciliation with God, and also a journey to go and be reconciled with their communities, their villages that they have really been a bad influence, where they've killed people, where they've robbed people. So when that happens, first of all, that's a win for for God, to see the communities reconcile. Say, this is not the person that you knew. This is a new person, and then they begin to see that not only in words, but they see it in deeds. When he or she is living with them and is helping the others that are going through the same problems, because these militia and rebel groups are still being formed. And I believe that with these graduates going back and preaching peace and being ambassadors of peace is going to have an impact. You say 10, 20 years, I'll see villages that will be transformed. I'll see where instead of war, and that we're going to have peaceful villages. Instead of being robbers, instead of being in the bush killing people, instead of raping women, they will be helping the women, helping the country, their families, and of course helping their country as well. You can see the signs of real transformation of men and women that are transformed for better. And I can't wait. And I can see what God is doing. And we are so thankful to be part of what God is doing for his glory and for his fame.
I love to think about going to the Village Peace Clubs and seeing the look on the kids in the Village Peace Club, the Peace and Healing Program. Those kids who have been orphaned by war, those kids who were once child soldiers, and they're looking to this graduate who was once where they were.
Yeah.
And so they have a different influence on them, because the graduate can say, I was once where you were.
Mm-hmm.
And so that level of influence, no one can speak to it like that person can. Certainly we can't, and you guys can't. And so that's I think of it all.
That's beautiful.
You all, thank you so much for joining us via Zoom. We wish you could have been here in Nashville with us, which was the original plan. But maybe next year for Hope Wins, we'll have you here. You'll get to meet all the great guests that are here with us tonight. But until then, Mungu akubariki. God bless you. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We love you so much. I can't wait to be with you again real soon.
Thank you so much.
Asante.
In Nashville, we are coming. Next year,
Come
we are
on.
coming.
All right.
Bye.
So has this been heavy or what? It's been a little heavy, but also inspiring. So we wanted to give you guys time to just breathe a little bit, because I know it has been pretty heavy. This is Ruby Amonbu and Sam Ashworth, if you guys would like to give them a round of applause. So on your tables, you have a journal. Go ahead and pull that out. And those of you at home, if you have the Hope Wins Experience Kit, you also have this. If you don't, just get some pen and paper. So to process kind of what you guys have experienced, our team put together some questions for you that we'll start one question tonight, and throughout the next week, on your own time, you can process some of the other questions. The first one is, when did I first step into the story of war-affected youth, and what is my next step? And I think that, in our American culture, we're really guilty about being really moved by something and using this extreme language like, man, that rocked my world, and fill in the blank. And then we're so moved, but then we go home and we turn on Netflix or we watch a game, or like we get into drama at work, and then it leaves us. And so our challenge tonight is for you not to let that happen, that you sit with this, whatever it is that you're experiencing, just sit with it. So Sam is going to sing a Grammy Award-winning song, by the way.
Oscar nominated, actually,
Sorry,
not Grammy.
It's not Grammy Award
Oh, is
winning.
it not?
It is
Okay.
Oscar nominated.
Can you tell I'm a psychologist and I don't know anything about this stuff? Clearly, whatever it is, it's really it's a beautiful song that he will be singing, that he should probably tell you about and not me, as you journal. And like I said, go ahead and take these journal questions and process them over the next week. Thank you.
This is called Speak Now. Listen, listen, while the storm in your heart is raging. Listen, listen, listen. Listen, listen to the echoes of martyr spring. Listen, listen, listen. Listen, listen. Brothers and sisters, listen, listen, listen. I swear we'll never find the way to where we're going on our own. Don't take your eyes off the road. Can you hear the bells ring out? Speak now. Speak now. Can you hear the angels sing loud? Speak now. Speak now. Listen, listen to the message of hope and the whispers of ghosts. Listen, listen, listen. Listen, listen, for the children will grow on the seeds that we sow. They listen, they listen, they listen. Listen, listen, brothers and sisters, listen, listen, listen. I swear we'll never find the way to where we're going all alone. Don't take your eyes off the road. Can you hear the bells ring out? Speak now. Speak now. Can you hear the angels sing loud? Speak now. Speak now. Oh, can you hear the bells ring out? It's time. Speak now. Speak now. Can you hear the angels cry out? Speak now. Speak now. Thank you.
Wow, what a beautiful song and such a powerful time of journaling,
Such a beautiful night it's been. My name is Chelsea Lernahan, and I'm on the board at Exile International. And I just want to say what an honor it is to be here with all of you tonight and just celebrate what God is doing, turning survivors of war into leaders of peace in the DRC and Uganda. I had the privilege of stepping into my story with war-affected kids a couple of years ago when I first met Matthew and Bethany. And then I got to step into that story a little bit deeper when I traveled to Uganda and Rwanda, and I got to meet survivors and hear their story. They shared with me their story of abduction and what they had to face, killing people in front of their communities and their families, and then what it was like to be a part of the LRA with just no hope for their future. But really what I want to share with you is another story that I got to hear. And that's the story of just hope that they had, and redemption and reconciliation that they had because of what they had gone through Exile's program. I got to hear who they knew they were in Jesus because of what they had gone through Exile. And that is why I continue to stand behind the work that Exile is doing. I know it has been a joy and an honor for my family and I just to get to walk alongside the impact that Exile is making in the DRC and Uganda over the years. I have so much confidence in the U.S. team and the teams in Africa. I just want to share a little story just this past year. When the volcano hit, I was getting texts from Matthew and Bethany every hour, if not more than that probably, just of what was happening on the grounds and who was accounted for and who was not yet accounted for, which way the lava was coming as it was coming towards the center with the kids. They were trying to figure out evacuation plans and trying to get a bus and all these logistics, and just asking for prayer. And the reason I tell you this is because I got one text that just totally gave me chills. And this text was the whole Nashville team had stopped what they were doing, and they were down on their knees and their hands in the air, and they were just praying. And they were praying because we know that God can do things beyond what we could ever even dream or plan of. And we have so much confidence in what he can do. God is alive. We can clearly see that in the room tonight. We can see that through his work in Uganda and the DRC. And I just encourage you to think of that as you consider your giving tonight. I just invite you to step into your story deeper and make an investment of generosity that will fuel more stories to come. Like Beth said, you never know when the next survivor that you will meet, or the child that you will meet, will be a leader of peace. So practically, here's what that looks like. It takes $550 to support a child in a year. And so tonight, I invite you to get behind 1, 2, 5, 10, 20 children tonight. Or if you prefer to give on a monthly basis, you can impact multiple children throughout the year. Like Matthew said, our goal tonight is $150,000. And I believe together we can come together and we can do that together. And I just want to recognize, we realize that this past year and a half has been one where we have asked a lot of you, your communities have asked a lot of you, your resources, your time, and your finances. And we recognize that. This has also been a very difficult year for the communities that we've worked in. They've survived a volcano. They've gone through 2 waves of COVID with very little access to health care. They've gone through a devastating kidnap and so much more. And instead of our African and our U.S. teams saying, this is just way too much, we're going to step back, this is too much for us, they really said, no, those children could be our children. And so they dug their heels in just a little bit deeper this year. And I just tell you that because I want to stand here and encourage you just to dig in a little bit deeper this year if you can. And don't forget, all gifts are matched tonight. Actually, we had up to $50,000, but I just heard that because of the generosity in this room, they're now matched up to $65,000, which is so amazing and something to think about as you consider your giving. And I think we'll have on the screen the different ways to give. If table hosts can go ahead and pass around the white envelope. We've got computers in the back if you prefer to give online. We've got people back there that can help you give. If you're at home, please go to www.exileinternational.com/hopewins. You can give, if you want to go through your phone, there's a QR code. As I said, there's a lot of different ways that we can give tonight and just get behind what God is doing through Exile. As we consider our giving tonight, we're going to hear a song from Ruby and Sam. We actually get to hear Ruby sing 2 songs to child survivors of war in the world tonight, which is so special, and we are so grateful that you're here with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you don't know how beautiful you are. One look at you and I see stars that shine up over my head. I hope you know these words that I've said are true, 'cause when you do, you'll know how beautiful you are. I want you to know how beautiful you are. You could never be last place, 'cause in my heart you've won the race, yes. Oh, how beautiful you are. So in those times you're standing still, I hope somehow that you just will take time to see what I see. There's nothing, darling, you cannot be. It's true, I hope you do know how beautiful you are. I want you to know how beautiful you are. You could never be last place. You're like a smile I can't erase, no. Oh, how beautiful you are. Oh, how beautiful you are. Oh, how beautiful you are. You could never be last place, 'cause in my heart you've won the race, yes. Oh, how beautiful you are. They really are. Yeah, so I see those babies. They're all babies. You know, we're all somebody's baby. We were all somebody's baby. So, and there's nothing like being told you're worthy. There's nothing like being told you're enough. There's nothing like being told you belong. So this last song is my prayer, is our prayer for these beautiful babies, that they always know you belong. Another new day, you're feeling dark gray. It's hard to let the light in. You wanna go hide, but gotta go try. So let me help you begin. Just come and take my hand. You don't have to have a plan. You'll always have a friend in me. Any kind of road you travel on, anytime you feel you're all alone, I'll be here to help you through. I'll be here reminding you, you belong. You belong. I wanna know you, I wanna show you that you don't have to pretend. No need to think twice, together for life. Even if this world ends, just come and take my hand. You don't have to have a plan. You'll always have a friend in me. Any kind of road you travel on, and anytime you feel you're all alone, I'll be here to help you through. I'll be here reminding you, you belong. You belong wherever you are. I'll be your North Star. Wherever you are, I'll never be too far. Any kind of road you travel on, and anytime you feel you're all alone, I'll be here to help you through. I'll be here reminding you, you belong. You belong. You belong. You belong. You belong.
Let's thank Ruby and Sam one more time.
Hey, thank you so much for having us.
For those who are joining online, if you go to exileinternational.org/hopewins, there's all kinds of ways that you can give to that right now. And I know most of you in the room gave, and I also want to plant the seed that when you're making your decisions at the end of December and your accountant calls you and says, hey, here's the tax threshold and here's how this works. Don't forget ministries like Exile International. They benefit greatly, not just tonight, but when you're evaluating your whole year giving and where you are in generosity, please remember them. Matthew, Bethany, thank you so much for letting us be a part of this. Is really a love story, right? That's what we're hearing. I'll send you with this. My favorite definition of love goes like this. Love is a rugged commitment to be with someone, to be for someone, unto Christ-likeness for as long as it takes. And what we've seen in Matthew and Bethany are two people not only committed to each other and their precious little girl, but committed to loving the way that Jesus compels us to love. So it's been a good way to spend a Sunday evening. Go in the grace and the peace of Jesus Christ. Amen.